Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wisdom Seeker Live podcast for uh, this week. And look forward to spending roughly an hour with you to talk about a topic to look and gain wisdom on. Topic today that we're going to be talking about is potential and trying to consider our potential and whether or not we're using it wisely. As always, we start off the podcast talking about what we mean on the podcast in terms of wisdom. And wisdom is a journey that starts with gaining knowledge. And when we gain knowledge, facts, figures, information, we can do it formally, informally, whatever. But gaining the knowledge helps us to be able to start the process, but it's definitely not the end of the process. Knowledge isn't our power. We can have all the knowledge in the world and not do anything with it or not be able to use it and apply it, and it does us no good. So, knowledge is the first step. And then the next step in the journey towards wisdom is to gain understanding. And understanding is when we take knowledge and we begin to make it a part of who we are, make it a part of our life, use it to solve problems, to come up with ideas, and so on. And then the next step in that process is to go to wisdom, which is the key step. And what wisdom is about is taking our knowledge and our understanding and beginning to see it from a much bigger perspective outside of ourselves, so that we're looking at things, not just how it affects us, but how it affects others and the implications to ourselves, but also those around us. And that is the important step in the whole process. And for those of us that uh, have a spiritual bent, we look at that as maybe seeing the world and things around us and the people around us through God's eyes. So that's how we view looking at wisdom on Wisdom Seeker Live podcast. Welcome, Zaid. Glad to have you with us today and look forward to hearing your comments and from the rest of the audience as well. So, potential. What is potential? Uh, One way to look at it is in electrical terms, we talk about potential, and that is the difference between what is available, what can be, and the ground or the receiving end, if you will. But humanly, for us, potential is the difference between where we are and what we're about, and where we need to be and what we can be about. And so we have that potential. And quite often, though, we don't really understand what our potential is. Most people, I say most, many people anyway, look at their potential in light of what other people think success is. And they are taking time seeking out the successes that other people think are there. And so, what we want to do is to begin to look at our potential in a little different fashion. We want to look at our potential in light of who we are and who we're designed to be with what kind of purpose, and begin to develop that potential. And the challenge that we face is working through that process. And it takes time. And hopefully, in an ideal world, that process starts when we're young with our parents, helping us understand our design and our purpose, and working through that to begin to develop that part of us so that we can move into our potential. Unfortunately, in our culture, A lot of times that doesn't happen. In fact, the challenge that we have a lot of times with our current culture is that we have parents, well-meaning, that are trying to correct their mistakes in their life through their children, rather than trying to help their children find their potential and developing that. And again, that's not all parents. There are a lot of parents that are doing some great things with their kids and helping them find who they are designed to be. And that's great. And hopefully that's the effort that is made. And if not, then it's up to us as individuals to begin to find this out for ourselves through journey and through an effort. And what we need to do is make a conscious effort to do so. Again, it's about awareness, it's about intentionality to begin to understand what our potential is. There are people, coaches, and all that'll help with that. I'm one of those, so I'm available to coach people in that regard. And but the goal is to understand what our potential is so that we can target our potential in order to move in the right direction, develop a vision for ourselves based on our design and therefore in line with what our potential is. Very important. We have a lot of people, again, that are chasing other people's potential, and it can be a real problem. And it creates misalignment, it creates struggles. We see this even in our occupations, our jobs. We have a lot of people that are in jobs that they struggle with because they're not aligned with who they are and what their potential is. And that's why we have a lot of people that are living for the weekend because they are not living in a way that's congruent with who they are. Therefore, they are always struggling to do what they are about and not getting there. So it's just a lot to consider, but something that we need to really consider as part of our journey, and especially part of our journey in finding our potential. And the goal is ultimately, hopefully, that we find our potential in a way that we can then begin to grow into it and do so congruent in our life. That's how we determine our priorities and how we have our understanding and hopefully make choices that work congruent for us to achieve our potential. I apologize. I'm having some little technical difficulty. I see that someone has joined us on the streaming side. You're identified as a LinkedIn user, and I can't see your name. So please let us know who it is. I know we have a few of our regulars that come up as LinkedIn users. Hello, Dr. Vimla. Glad to have you with us today. And I am in the process of making an adjustment in the background, hopefully, to help overcome and be there in a moment with that. So potential, where are we? But more importantly, where can we be? Where should we be? And that's what we want to find some wisdom in, both in larger general terms, but more importantly, on an individual basis. Each of us has great potential, and the opportunity to use it comes in different ways. And hopefully, it is a factor in our work. And the more we are aligned with our potential, seeking our potential in our work, the more satisfied we're going to be, and the more content that we'll be. And we will be less likely to always be tired and drained. So we just got to work through that process. And there are different books and information out there that will be helpful in that regard. And like I said, there are people that can help in that regard. And when we can look at and use those methods, it's helpful. And so want to seek that out. The key is to really work to seek it out. That is so important. Eunice, I see now that it is that you have joined us, and as always, glad to have you with us. Had to, again, get some technology working here to help. So potential, those of you that are joined us, have you been able to identify what your potential is so that you can potentially develop into your potential? The idea is that our potential is what drives our priority, and our potential is based on how we're designed, who we're designed to be. And as we begin to gain insight into that, then we can be aligned and therefore be more effective and more satisfied, more content. And that's the goal in working towards our potential. And at the end of the day, if we find our potential and grow into it, it benefits others, because our growth and what we experience is also how we begin to be of value to other people, reach out to them, let them learn and gain from our experience and the wisdom we found. Because the beauty about wisdom is that we don't have to learn it all through adversity and challenges. Now, we do need to be ready to do that, because that's part of the process of life. But in the meantime, we can gain wisdom from others and their experiences. And that's part of the value of being connected with other people and taking the time to learn from them, gain from them, so that we can gain wisdom more effectively, maybe more readily or faster through other people's experience. So potential, for example, the potential that drives my life and my vision is the potential to help others find wisdom. And it's not that I have all wisdom that's out there, but I have learned how to seek it and help others begin to do so, and ways to help others through not giving wisdom, but asking wise questions. So that is the potential that I have, and part of what I do. And my vision is to help others find their potential. That's what drives what I do in all regards. And that is the vision that I have for my life. And the more I'm aligned with that, the more effective, more satisfied I am. And that's what I'm hoping, that as wisdom seekers, that we can begin to make a priority, that we can push forward to find what our individual potential is. One thing I need to clarify here, because it's something that a lot of people struggle with, but potential is not value. Okay. One of the things that I watch is a lot of people struggling and even staying in a defensive posture, because they think that reaching their potential is where their value is found. And that's not the case. Our value is already established by our Creator. God created us with ultimate great value. And just as my saying goes, we didn't earn it. It's not something we've gained. So we can't lose it. We can't do dumb things and become less valuable. Second thing is, it wasn't given to us by any human being. Our value is not in what other people think of us. Therefore, their disagreement or their unwillingness to support or their choice to withdraw their support or whatever doesn't change our value. They can't take our value away. And we are created by God with great value. And because of the character of God, that value will not be taken away. So please don't confuse potential and our value as a human being. It's not the same. By being more or less moving towards our potential doesn't change the value that we have as a person. It will change the effectiveness. It will change the level of contentment that we have, and it will affect us to a point of how well we can continue to function and move forward. So real important that we not get the two confused. And let's see, Zaid has a question here. How do you see the education system in general, whether in schools or higher education, helps people realize their potential, or at least the skills they have that would direct them into their potential? Well, unfortunately, our current school system, I don't believe, on the whole, there are exceptions, but on the whole, it's not about us finding our real potential. It's about producing students with degrees and diplomas and things like that. And it's not about individual development. It's about mass development, production style. Therefore, I don't think generally that our system is designed in a way that it will help us to develop potential. Now, again, there are exceptions. There are places where there are teachers that are able to help students in spite of the system. And there are people that will develop and find their potential in spite of the system as well. But generally speaking, I don't believe that our education system is pushing us towards finding our potential, but rather meeting some theoretical norm that somehow makes us valuable, or even depending on who you ask and what the attainment becomes, if it improves our value. It doesn't. Our value is established. Then it becomes a part of, or a consideration of, whether we are contributing well to our society, and if we're developing well to become the best that we can be, to be a contributing part of society. So I hope I've answered your question there, Zaid. One of the things I do mention that we have the capability, in spite of poor design of systems or whatever, to help learn our potential if we make it a priority. That's important. And if we are seeking wisdom in regards to what our potential is, then we will find it in spite of the obstacles, because we won't stop until we develop and learn that about ourselves. And so, yeah, the system works against us, but it doesn't keep us from it if we are determined to find it, because wisdom is something that is available to seek, and it's been promised that if we seek it and ask for it, that we will be given it. And that's another key part. So I just hope that people don't look for the education system in that regard to be able to find our potential. In an ideal world, it would be a contributing part, but unfortunately, the system has gotten a bit out of sync with what is really what needs to happen. Welcome, Syed. And Syed makes a comment that interesting show of the current situation. Thank you. We try to be practical. We try to address concerns and questions that we have and find wisdom in it. And we do that by sharing with each other and having discussion. So feel free to jump in with questions and comments as we go along. So again, potential. Potential is the difference between where we are and where we can be, and who we are currently in our behaviors and in our choices versus who we can be. And I do want to keep reminding us that the degree to which we reach our potential doesn't affect our value as a person. That's already established. We have great value. All of us, everyone, every human being has great value that's given us by our Creator. And so don't feel like if you're not, haven't found your potential or begin to understand it and move towards it, don't feel like you have lost value. What you do have, or what you have lost, or what you haven't gained, is the effectiveness as well as congruence with things in your life. The goal is that we live congruent with who we are and what our potential is, so that we are more satisfied, or to put it in terms that the Bible uses, that we live abundantly. And I don't want people to think that when I talk about abundance, unfortunately, with our cultures, our immediate thought is abundance is talking about wealth. And that's not necessarily the case. Wealth is just a tool in our culture. So the idea is, though, our values established, and that our potential is something we want to find and grow into, so that we are best for ourselves and best for our society. That when we are moving in that direction, then we're in a place to help others to move that way also. And one of the ways, practical ways, is something we've shared on Wisdom Seeker on an ongoing basis to discover your potential, is an exercise that we talk about. It was originally issued as a 40-day challenge when the Wisdom Seeker Live podcast began. And that is, first step is to look at the things in our lives that are just noise, things that are distracting to us, and begin to disconnect from them. One of those things is different types of media, especially TV media, radio media, and even social media can be a real distraction. It can be a driver in our being distracted away from what we really need to be focused on. And so we disconnect from whatever those distractions are, which in turn will give us some additional time. And that time can then be used to observe. And observe means to stop and look, listen, and even sense, because as we've talked about on our podcast many times, is that we are three parts. We're a body, we have a soul, and we're a spirit. And in order to be healthy and to fully grow in wisdom, we need to nurture all three parts and be in tune to all three parts. And so one of the things that we want to be able to do is, as we have our spirit growing stronger, that we are able to sense things even outside of facts, figures, and information, and the physical in front of us. Welcome, Lydia. Glad to have you with us. And Lydia makes a comment and ties into what we were just talking about. We need faith to achieve our potential, especially in leading by God's guidance. I agree completely, Lydia, that that is a key part of it. and developing fully as a person in all three areas of our life, we have a much greater chance of finding what our potential is and then beginning to grow into it and move forward with it. And that's faith is such a key part, because that is where our spirit is nurtured along the way. Uh, but as we talk about on the Tuesday morning Human SOS show, physical health is a factor as well. So learning how to take care of ourselves physically is of value, and that is important. Mental and emotional health and well-being is important, because it's all part of who we are. And if we want to have the best chance of finding our potential and beginning to develop and use it, we need to be healthy in all regards. And that needs to be part of our priority. And so as we look out and seek out that potential, as we begin to find it, then and move towards it, we are getting to a place where we are much more satisfied with the right things, with the right priority, versus trying to be satisfied with things that are not necessarily in alignment with who we're designed to be. Because that is some of the distractors or detractors that we have going on, is that we are too caught up in trying to be something that we're not designed to be. It may be great for another individual, and it may be a way for others to uh, grow into their potential, but that doesn't mean that's our potential. And even if the potential is similar, how we approach it is unique, because each of us are unique in our own way. So we can, as we look at other people that are role models, the goal is not to emulate their behaviors. It's to understand the principles that they have learned and are functioning from, and apply the principles in our life. Real different. I know a lot of people want in order to reach potential or improve, want to pick up on others. You know, we talk about the 7 habits of this and the 5 steps to that, and so on. And they are informational and can be helpful, but how someone else does something is not necessarily guaranteed that we can do the same thing and achieve the same goal. I would even suggest, based on my observation, that many of these concepts, the steps and the habits and things like that, ultimately are effective about 30% of the time in people's lives. And that's because they are based on someone else's life and their experience, without considering the uniqueness that each of us bring. Even if we're on a similar track with someone, where we are in that timing is different, and where we are in that process and how we are dealing with those processes are different, because of our unique design as a person. And yes, Lydia, part of what we were talking about is being intuitively sound. And that is important, because when we're not able to use the intuition or gut or whatever term you like, we're missing a part of where we can learn and grow and find uh, wisdom. And then also, those skills, if you will, or characteristics, are helpful in helping us work through relationships and adversities and challenges, all important part of it. So going back to what we were talking about, is that we want to find our potential, the difference between where we are where we can and should be and begin to grow into that. And when we do it and we begin to do it wisely, we can grow and contribute more and be healthy ourselves. I believe I got a little bit sidetracked. I was talking about a process that we use here on Wisdom Seeker Live. It's part of the challenge that we have, and that is disconnecting from distractions and taking the time that we gain from not engaging with the distractions and begin to observe, and using our eyes and our ears and our senses and our spirit. And as we observe and get insight into what is going on with us inwardly and outwardly, then we can begin to find the wisdom in it. How does this thing, this information, this observation fit in the bigger picture, in the bigger picture of our life, as well as the bigger picture of the lives of those that we encounter around us, family, friends, colleagues. And as we begin to see things in that fashion, not just what it is and does for us, then we're moving from knowledge and understanding into wisdom, getting that bigger perspective, getting the broader concept is so key. Let's see, Zaid says, thank you for answering my question. I asked because in the days we're in, many kinds don't have the foundation at home to help them realize their potential. That is correct. We have misaligned to a point that in our current cultures and our especially last 3 generations, primary inputs for young people, our children, our kids, has become the education system. And if you do some research or if you read some of the articles I have on it, you'll see what I'm talking about, in that original design of society is for parents to be the primary input into the lives of their children, and hopefully to do so from a standpoint of love, and that love being beyond love for someone because of what I can get from them, but rather unconditional love, which is what parents should strive for with their children. And part of that unconditional love is to help guide our children into developing as a person, as well as we have. Not like we have, but learning from what our experiences were. Share the wisdom that we've gained with our children and help them begin to seek out wisdom in their lives, so that at the point where we are no longer a part of their lives, that they continue to grow and move forward and gain wisdom, so that they can be the most effective, the most satisfied, content in their lives. So it's all part of a cycle of life that we deal with. And when we can focus in and get that cycle going, then finding our potential is not such a struggle. Finding our potential and beginning to grow into it is not such a struggle. And we see evidence of this, how it goes on even today in the lives of peoples, including young people that are being exposed and taught how to find wisdom in their lives. And the potential of what they do is very remarkable. I, in fact, at a recent concert, was able to hear the son of one of the musicians on in the group performing, that at 14 was already performing on stage, and he did a performance as part of this concert and was phenomenal. And obviously, the young man had begun to develop his potential very early on. And when that happens, most of us go, wow, that's remarkable, that's great. And the key there is that if we're all learning to grow and live in our potential, then it seems less strange and more an expectation that others will be doing the same. And as we see that happening, we begin to find out about living abundantly and living healthy by being what we're supposed to be. That's what abundance is about. And that's why that, for example, there are jobs that I'm not suited for and would be absolutely miserable doing because they do not fit in what my potential is. And therefore, if I try to do one of these jobs because I think it's society likes it or thinks it's wonderful or the money is better or whatever, but it's not who I am designed and within my potential, ultimately, then it will get to a point where I will be unsatisfied and discouraged and even lose hope. We talk about burnout, we talk about stress. Those are all a part of or a contributing factor to those is our lack of operating at our potential, but trying to be and live in someone else's potential. Welcome, Jeremy. Glad to have you with us today. Always good to hear from you. So, when we look out and we see the number of people that are living dissatisfied, living without feeling fulfilled, living with stress in their lives that they don't need to be living with. It's quite often because we're not aligned. We do not know what our potential is. We haven't taken the time to grow wise in our potential. We have not quite often even taken the time to observe, to take in what's going on so that we can then begin to find out about our potential and then seek out wisdom in it and seek out ways to grow into it. And the way we do that is obviously through starting the process of gaining wisdom by gaining knowledge. That's valuable, but too many people stop there. You can't stop with knowledge. If you do, eventually your knowledge is going to run out. You're going to find situations where your knowledge doesn't give you what you need to find the answers needed to grow forward and move forward in our lives, and to do so in a healthy fashion. I think sometimes we find ourselves reacting to life situations in unhealthy ways because we don't know what healthy is, especially for ourselves. That's where understanding our potential can come in and contribute into us developing as a person more fully into the potential that we can. So, wisdom in regards to our potential. And it involves taking time to understand who we are, what our design is, what is our purpose. And as we begin to make that a priority, then we can begin to grow. We can develop a vision that drives us in our lives. And also, once we have a clear vision, we can then develop a mission. How do we go about getting there? And it also helps us to understand what our core values are. We need to have core values that align appropriately with our society, but we also need to make sure that we have our own core values that are part of our lives, that are non-negotiables. They are part of what we will give up everything else to protect and hold on to. Lydia makes a comment. Thank you, by the way, for y'all's comments and questions. It is much more interesting show when we hear from you guys and get your perspective, your comments and questions. Lydia comments, we could guide our children in making wise decisions and gaining wisdom through testing the growth of their potential. If the potential bears fruits of results, they will see growth. It's a journey, indeed. And the best way to start that journey is when we, as parents, loving parents, are able to and have a priority to guide them, but to guide them in a way that they can grow and risk without devastation, without things happening that are going to be life threatening, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. And once we can guide them during that time under our protection, and hopefully based in our wisdom. Now, I do have to offer up that the challenge we face is that a lot of our current parents haven't even gained wisdom for themselves, much less to have wisdom for their children. And that is something as a culture, as a society, that we need to be really working to overcome, is that we've forgotten or we have made less a priority to even seek wisdom. And as a result, we are seeing parents and even grandparents that are not bringing wisdom to their children and grandchildren because they don't have it themselves. And there are results of that, such as one of the complaints culturally we have is that there is no more common sense. Common sense, a byproduct of gaining wisdom. Common sense is what it's called, but the reality is it's the insight that we gain as we grow in wisdom that gives us the perspectives so that we make better choices and have better understanding and avoid unnecessary mistakes. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect and that we should avoid failing or making mistakes, because that's where we grow. But at the same time, if we are not wise, we end up dealing with adversities and mistakes that didn't have to be. And it takes away from our energy, takes away from our strength, our sense of well-being, and it all factors in if we're not careful. And so going back to seeking out our potential, what is our potential? And it's never too late, by the way. There are many stories of many people that didn't begin to understand and find their potential till late in life. So if you're like me and kind of in that fall season of life, it's not too late to look for, discover, and grow into your potential. Hopefully, because of our theoretical maturity, we can grow into that potential more quickly, because hopefully at this point we have better understanding of ourselves and better understanding of what's going on around us, and hopefully some other basic wisdom that we can call on that will help us to find specific wisdom in the area of our potential. But the goal, parents, grandparents, be working with your children, your grandchildren. Don't wait to say, oh, well, they're going to let them be children until they're legally adults. That is unkind and unfair to our children. What we need to be doing is to helping our children and grandchildren develop wisdom so that as they go into their adult years, that they make better, wiser choices and have less chance of having to deal with lifelong or life-altering errors and mistakes and failures. The nice thing is that we can recover at any point, but what will potentially happen is that by the time we figure it out, we have done harm to our bodies, done harms to our minds and our emotions, and even affected our spirit. And that is what we want to avoid. We want to gain wisdom and grow and move forward with the least amount of permanent errors or permanent harm in our lives. Again, though, don't feel hopeless, because the backdrop of this, and we explained earlier, that finding your potential and living it is not going to add to or take away from your value as a person. That's already established. We each, all of us, have equal great value by our Creator. And there's nothing that we can do to change it or take it away, or anyone else. So we need not worry or be anxious about our value. We need to accept our value and then begin to develop in our potential, so that as we grow in our potential, we are in a place of satisfaction and contentment and joy. And then from that basis, we are able to also help others, because as much as we are very unique in many ways, we also share some common design, and that is to help each other and to work with each other as part of our life and giving back to others in our lives. And sometimes it's working the other way, in that we're on the receiving end. So the value of that goes both directions. It's an equal opportunity blessing. And as we gain wisdom in our relationships, we can begin to understand, is this person a part of our lives because we need to be giving to them, or them to us, or maybe it's mutual. But that's all part of the process of becoming wise in our relationships. And as we do that, we help each other along the way and encourage each other to live into our potential. And that doesn't mean them becoming like us, because we are all unique in every regard. Or no, let me back up. We are all unique. So we share some commonalities, we share some similarities, but when it comes down to the ultimate understanding, is we are each unique in who we are designed to be and the purpose that we serve along the way. What happens, by the way, is that as we begin to find our vision, we will have shared components of vision with other people. And those are people that come into our life that are there to partner with or collaborate, coordinate, whatever term, with us to move towards the shared parts of our vision. And when we find the people in our lives that have that, then we begin to develop with each other into relationships that are healthy, long term, and are productive, and bring joy to each person involved, because they're moving forward towards shared vision. And part of what we want is that, from in terms of work, employment, whatever that looks like, we want that to be in line with the vision we have. People that find work in line and congruent with their vision and potential don't have to spend all their time trying to muster up motivation, muster up drive, because once we are working towards our potential and growing towards our vision, it's natural of who we are. And so we're not having to try to always pump ourselves up and look for reasons to do things, because the reason that we do those things is because it is congruent with who we are. That's what we're after. And that's what we're striving towards. Jeremy makes a comment. He says, unfortunately, many don't realize their potential until it's too late. However, sometimes our potential can be found within our mission and is presented when it is needed the most. Um, yes, Jeremy, I agree that in our, especially our current culture, we have a lot of people, because it's not a priority in our culture, that don't realize their potential until later in life. But I want to encourage people, don't give up, because even if we realize our potential, understand it better later in life, we can still, if we choose to grow into it, that we can still help by reaching or moving towards our potential, certainly. And you were talking about with finding our potential within our mission, and those are ways, evidences of what our design is. We are That's part of the process, looking for those evidences in our life of who and what we are. And hopefully, we are open to people around us that have wisdom, because they can see our potential sometimes even better than we can see it ourselves. And when we are willing to hear what they offer and share, then it helps us in that process. In fact, they can be key in that process. And you, each of you, may be that someone for another person. So be willing to invest in others, to help share your perspective with them in a caring, loving fashion, not beat people over the head, because rarely is that effective. But most of the time, it's about coming along and being a part of a journey together, and then earning the opportunity to say, this is something I see in you, and sharing that, because that may be the something that someone needs to hear to begin to develop into their potential. So this is all part of the way we're designed to function. And we are designed to function as humans and with each other, not just solo acts, and that we're some all looking to be superstars. At the end of the day, our superpower, if you will, is our uniqueness and our willingness to live that, and at the same time to use our uniqueness as a complement to others in order to help them, as we all go along, to live a life that is full and abundant and joyful. So, as we're winding down, again, the goal is, are you finding your potential in a way that you can use your potential wisely? And to use your potential wisely means to use it not just to your benefit, but how does it affect and benefit the larger of society, the larger of family. And as we begin to look at it in that fashion and grow into that potential, then we find ourselves in much healthier relationships, much healthier family situations, much healthier work situations, because we are fulfilled in ourselves. And from that basis, we're able to help others to discover their fulfillment, their potential. Zaid makes a comment. I think so many people, young and old today, and operating way below their potential, maybe because no one even told them the word potential. I agree. And I think part of the reason that we have so many that are operating well below their potential is that we culturally no longer seek the wisdom to find our potential. We are boxed into patterns of so called success and patterns of what identifies accomplishment, to a point that we never find our potential. And so hopefully, and I know this is something that I've been on a campaign for, is that we all begin to make it a priority to seek and find wisdom in our lives so that we can, as a part of that, the byproduct is find our potential. And as we begin to find our potential, grow in our potential, and do it on a larger scale, then it is better for us and better for our society. Welcome, George from Scotland. Glad to have you with us. We are kind of winding down here today, but look forward to any contribution you might have, and hopefully share something along the way that might be beneficial to you as well. So as we wind down, potential. Let's look for our potential and look for it in such a way that we can begin to use it wisely. That's the goal. We want to be wise in growing into our potential. And part of that wisdom is going to be to help others discover and grow into their potential. And it may be that we aren't there to help them arrive at their potential, but we may be there to help them find pieces and parts of understanding of their potential. So we all need the wisdom in regards to our potential, so that as we can learn it and begin to grow in it, then we will benefit ourselves in that we will find satisfaction and blessing for ourselves, and satisfaction in being a blessing for others along the way. So thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope that you will continue to seek wisdom in your lives, and that part of the wisdom that you gain is what is your true potential, and then how do you grow into that potential. And when we do that and begin to align the rest of our lives with that, then we can be more effective, more satisfied, and less regrets. Part of the regrets we have is when we never find that place in our life. It's a journey that takes our body, our soul, and our spirit in order to truly reach it. So God bless everyone, and I hope you have an amazing week this week. I hope that if you are not confident in what your potential is, that you'll gain some new insight this week into what that looks like. What is your potential? And begin to move forward in growing and living in that potential. So thank you, everyone. God bless, and we'll see you next week for the Wisdom Seeker Live podcast on Monday at 8 a.m. Eastern. Take care. Bye.